Mm. Hi, friends. Welcome to MetaSymbology, the frequency of time. So stoked today to be here with my good friend, Kimberly Gair. We are going to be talking about this beautiful system called MetaSymbology that is, I feel like it's becoming more and more known every day. Back when I first started learning about the system 25 years ago, it was not very talked about. The Cards of Destiny book was just released, and now all these years later, I'm hearing and seeing cardology and metasymbology out all the time, and I love it. I love it. It means that we are ready for this unveiling of information and symbols. Miss Kimberly Gair and I are in a really beautiful, well-resourced community where we get together and we talk about frequency and we talk about business and we talk about community. And I'm so honored to have you here, Kimberly. Thank you so much for coming and showing your beautiful face and letting us learn about you and your birth card and your perspective. Like, what is it like to be a 5 of Hearts? Oof. Yeah, thank you, Kimberly.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. I'm super excited.
Yeah, when I saw you talking on our community call and I heard about what you were talking about, you came to do a timeline jump meditation for the whole of our frequency family. And I was just like, oh, that's just, me too. And it was just like so exciting. It felt like an opportunity that like I could either be upset and jealous or I could see friend. And fortunately, I had somebody who was also like a mutual friend or someone who knew of you, and she was like, yeah, go for it. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna say hi. I'm going to say hi. And your meditation was so great because it was, and the way that you led everybody through it, I could tell that you were experienced in the sense of like leading people through a somatic experience. I was impressed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Andromeda does the same practice, that she has the similar offering. And so it's definitely a massive compliment to have somebody sort of really see you. But then also to want to like honor you in that way and connect with you. I just thought that was so beautiful. And yeah, I'll just like do a quick jumping off point there, but that was our initial connection, was sort of bonding over the way that we work with time somatically with clients, with friends, with loved ones, and in our own spiritual practices. But shortly after that, we made that connection. You know, all of the other ways that we connect really just started to line up and make sense. And we're like, oh, of course we met. And like right off the bat, the metasymbology thing was like, oh,
It was a
of
huge
course.
thing because
Yeah, like,
you have a habit of what, finding cards around?
yeah, yeah. So like when I really first started getting into divination, like by and far and kind of still, honestly, like I've had the most deeply magic and spiritual and miraculous um, experiences of divination, true divination, through the classic playing card deck more than any other oracular system.
Wow.
And so I just have a really like strong sweet spot for
Yeah,
it.
you're constantly pulling cards and it's just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's so beautiful. So to hear that like other people have these amazing kind of experiences, I love that because it really shows the universalness of this system, that it's not just for one person, like anybody can tap into that. Of course. Yeah, well, you just pulled your card, the 5 of Hearts, which is
Out of the
why
deck,
we're here. What's that?
straight out of the deck.
Straight out of the deck. Wow. Like, you are a seer. You really, truly, truly are. And so, not at all surprised with your birthday, November 28th, correct?
Mhm.
Is the 5 of Hearts and the 7 of Clubs. I actually love that pairing so
Me
much. I was
too.
just reading here that overall, the large amount of odd number cards represent challenges and problems that must be resolved by spiritual approaches. Oh my gosh, so that's your 7. Like your 7 is a perfect match for a 5. Sevens are either spiritual, that's your option, either spirituality or negativity. It's kind of like you get to choose. And
Mhm.
so like you have that spiritual energy, and even those negative, when you're in a negative situation, it becomes an avenue to spirituality.
Well, yeah, always, definitely.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, also, I think those cards kind of, you mentioned something just now about signaling like problems or like things to be looked at or worked with,
Hmm.
hence the like spiritual nature of it all. But I would say that that also makes sense with my human design chart, role model martyr, and I kind of have this like way of messing up in order to learn my lessons. I like learn that through doing it.
The King of
Yeah,
Spades. You are absolutely correct. Like this is your mastery. That's your power. That is that seeing the meeting the challenge.
yeah, and like stepping into conflict, which has
Yeah.
kind of become like a part of my personality, but also part of my spiritual operating system in terms of like what my soul mission, what my vocational work is about. Like some of the foundations for every single thing that I do are always like they're very community oriented, usually, they're very connection oriented, but they're usually pretty spiritually oriented, but they're also very leadership oriented. That's always been my biggest bone with like the problems with society, is like leadership. And the more that I take the time to learn and study for myself what I feel leadership truly is, the more I'm realizing that it really is defined by a willingness, both of the self and the soul and the body to be able to step into conflict or to step into a problem. Um, and so also
Absolutely.
that thing of like the spade, it kind of makes me think of like getting in there to like dig the stuff up.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
but usually like again a process of discovery. Like it's kind of how we
Hmm.
get to where we
Yeah,
need to
and
go or find what we
transformation.
need to find. Yeah. So yeah, that card also definitely sings to me in this sense.
Absolutely. I was just like, you were just like talking about how you could see that and your human design all being interplayed, and for me to pull out the strongest or the most powerful card on the deck, number 52, is just like, yeah, he's just saying like, this is your power, is being able to step into the conflict, being able to see it and meet it. Because that's what fives are, challenges, or in the sense of change. Fives are change. And
Mhm.
change usually happens after some sort of conflict.
Right. Or even
It's
just being willing to make mistakes too in order to figure things
absolutely,
out. Like,
absolutely. Take a step forward after that stable four, going from that stable four. What's after that? Well, instability. I mean, and that's okay. That's we have to have people that are willing to step out of the cave into that unsafe. Here she goes.
yeah,
She's a five. She can handle it.
I'm always like the dumb one that's like, I'll go first,
I love
you
this. What did
know.
it say on the top? It said the emotional adventurer. The
Sounds
emotional
about right.
adventurer. This is from Robert Lee Camp's Love Cards book, what I was just reading from and whatnot. Robert Lee Camp, of course, is one person who's written some books about metasymbology. Would definitely love to get into some of like your current stuff of like what's going on with you if you want to, but I would love to like just talk about you and your five of hearts and what it's like, like being you, and
To be
and
me.
like, yeah, you are a representative of that energy. I much prefer your opinion on the five of hearts versus anybody else who's written about it, because they write from their perspective. You are
Right.
here to be the representative of the five of hearts and the seven of clubs. I would love to feel, or I would love to hear, what is it that you feel people misunderstand about you the most? Clear the air.
I think it is just that very like the very essence of what you just described, the perspective thing. I think I have a really unique perspective on things. Um, and people are usually surprised by that or they're really put off by it. Um, and so it can kind of go one way or another. Like I find that I don't think of myself as a polarizing person, but I find that people generally either like really appreciate my perspective, which I think comes out in my energy. Um, they appreciate my presence, or they're like, mm-mm.
Yeah, well, being courageous and confident, and that's how I see you after these months of getting to know you. That's how I see you, as courageous and confident. And that when people like look at that and compare themselves to you, like that, it can go either way, depending on how they feel about themselves.
Well, and I will say, like, one of those things that maybe people misunderstand about me or don't quite get right. It has a lot to do actually with this seven of clubs. Like I think it's really easy to like want to hang out in the five of hearts because I could talk about that all day. I could talk about five of hearts all damn day. But what was really cool to me was that you named 52 as the King of Spades card that came
Mm-hmm.
up, sort of indicating like sort of affirming uh that these are sort of belong to me.
Mm-hmm.
But what's cool about that is like I can be pretty analytical, and I feel that I'm also very intelligent and in my own way
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
in the way that I make connections. And that's very much this like oracular part of me that's like, able to, and the neurospicy part of me that's able to really easily make these connections and to sort of like speak different languages in life. It really is the archetype of poet, honestly.
Oh
Um,
my God, you are such a poet. Oh my God.
and I literally am a poet. I always have been since I was a little girl. So like the first poem I got published was in the third grade. Like
Oh,
I've always
good.
I've just always thought of life as being poetic because like my statement as a poet for sure has always been that life is there's something, I don't know, it has to do with like strange beauty, that like there's sadness inherent in beauty because everything ends.
Mhm.
And I think because of that, I've always had a strong sense or feeling of that, a strong knowing of that, like in that poet archetype energy. And I think because of that, it gives me this like really strong, like verve, like uh verve is the word that wants to come out of my mouth for some reason. There's a verve, but there's this really strong vibration of like just joy and like really savoring life, like having a very like strong love for life, and that I like cherish it because I know that it's not like I can understand that the infinity is like a built-in part of my nature, but if infinity is the eight, like seven takes us back a notch,
Mm.
right? So that's again an analytical mind. Like there is
Mhm.
this energy of the seven that to me is heaven. It is heaven
Mhm.
on earth, and it is that like
Yeah.
very sweet, like precious realization
Yeah.
that this is all so special.
Yeah.
We get to experience this.
It's
And so like,
temporary. And this now, right now, will never be ever again.
right, I am now. That was my affirmation for the day that I said in the shower. But so just to bring that energy number of seven back in,
Mm-hmm.
you said 52 in that moment, and immediately my brain, my analytical mind, made that connection of 5 + 2 is 7.
Oh, absolutely.
5 + 2 is 7,
100%.
and that makes a lot of sense. And it makes a lot of sense that seven is the number assigned to the suit of clubs. Because if I think that like the feminine aspect of me is like very much the heart's suit, and the masculine aspect of me, which I feel is actually maybe bigger or more prominent or something, like just in terms of like my soul frequencies and like the suitcase that is me.
Mm-hmm.
Like masculine has always been like a strong energy in me, and it's like something I really love about myself. And I feel like the club suit kind of speaks to the masculine in me, which is why when I first started using these cards for divination, um, it's funny, it wasn't a conscious choice. Like the same card, I should show you the stack. I have an entire stack. There was like a whole year and a half where like the nine of clubs card was, I would find them on the street and it was always nine of clubs. I have an entire stack of nine of clubs. And then when it wasn't nine of clubs, it would be like the queen of clubs. And so to me, it's like in that time frame, I was doing a lot of spiritual healing, and the healing was very much of my feminine and going through this like this healing transformation of empowerment in my feminine. So I just think it's interesting that that's like the way it chose to speak to me, and nine,
Yeah.
I always just, now it's crazy because I've literally never thought of this until this moment. I'm a verbal processor, but like nine is kind of a completion number, but I
Yeah.
got the completion number for like over a year.
Yeah.
And like at the time, I never even registered it as completion. I was just like, oh, this is the trust yourself card. This is the self-trust card.
Ooh,
And
that's
I
a
don't know
great
like what
interpretation of
I don't know
it.
what like metasymbology, like terminology or language says, but in my mind, that's what my card means. It's like, do stop listening to other people. Like it totally is about like sovereignty, you know, and like having real autonomy. And that as a woman is what I am finally stepping into after spending, you know, all this time working with frequency, working with healing, like getting into community, like doing this spiritual healing work. That's really like, that's sort of the healing that's taken place, that transformation.
Wow.
Um, like, so yeah, these cards are very much like wrapped up in what I'm currently experiencing. And this chapter of my life that I'm describing is like an epic. It is an
Mm-hmm.
epic and it's an epic event in my life. Like my life is forever changed by these events.
Mm-hmm.
They're life defining. You know, they give definition to my story because they've given me life,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's
I love the 9 as a return to self. That makes sense to me. And 9 being completion, that would very much be in alignment with MetaSymbology. It's like the last step before the whole, which is 10.
mhm,
But 9 is a spiral. So it's literally returning to self over and over and over again. I think same thing with a 6 being very universal type of energy. It's the spiral, right?
right. I just,
Universal versus going back home to self. Like those are just
right.
different,
Trajectories.
exactly, of the same pathway.
Wow, that's amazing. So you're brilliant. And this is part of why I like you. I have a deep appreciation for people who are not just like intellectual about things or have the ability to intellectualize things, but to actually like give like that intellect, like the intellectual energy is like there's like soul, there's poetry in it. Like I just think that what you when you speak like that to me, I'm like, it's brilliant. You're brilliant. Because I appreciate somebody who has a really like unique perspective. I've never ever thought of a 6 or 9 as a spiral. And now I'm like, oh, you know, and
Yeah.
I've never thought about return to self. I just was like, trust yourself. So like when someone can really like open these pockets up in my mind, I'm like, you're brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant, you know?
Oh, thank you. It's well, like sees like it's just what happens. I wanted to read because you were like wanting to talk about the 7 of clubs. In this love cards book, he has a little paragraph for each of the cards as your planetary ruler. And this just even from this first sentence here, it just makes so much sense. This ruling card gives a spiritual or philosophical nature to your thinking and disposition.
Yeah.
Really? Exactly. Um, it says you may also be a skeptic or a critic, but inwardly you hold onto some less practical ideas and beliefs.
Yep.
You have probably had many realizations about life as you experience mental awakenings from time to time. Says you love to spend money and need to be careful in your management of it. You also secretly desire to be noticed or recognized by others and may gravitate towards a job that allows you this recognition or attention. Well, I mean, that's just
Yeah. All of
100,
that feels
100,000%. Let's read this last couple sentences. You may find that you fluctuate between being very carefree and joyous to being quite worried and down about things. You may have some unusual mental gifts. I can definitely attest to that. Every time really it interacts with somebody that I've seen, you are constantly taking notes because you notice things, right? And that then allows you to then speak them back to the person so that they can know that they've been seen and witnessed. You are a seer. And having that 7 of clubs energy allows you to really see the whole of the organization. Once you get to 7, you get an organized organism. You get the 7 chakras, get the 7 days in a week. There's an infinite, or maybe there is an infinite, but there are a lot of instances where 7 gets to be sacred.
Yeah.
Holy.
Like, absolutely. 7, organization is heaven to me. Because I am so chaotic. There's so much about me that's like totally chaotic. And I appreciate that you talked about like noticing the things about people, and reflecting that back. Because like the first thing that I think of is like, I think about this on almost a daily basis since it happened like over 10 years ago or something. I was in the room with, I was in a dance studio, and I was dancing with one of the most prolific choreographers of our time. And I think the reason I was so obsessed was because she was so brilliant. You know, she was one of those people that didn't need to intellectualize her art because she was brilliant. She just opened our minds. And I remember like being in the middle of like an exercise, like an improv exercise. It was like a partner exercise. And she was like, notice, the instruction was to like offer care of some kind. Um, she kind of like, yeah, gave us a little bit of like context around that. But what she said was, notice what you are giving to another person. Like, notice what you're giving to them and how you're giving it to them, because usually we tend to give what we need. And so I think that a lot of people are like, don't really people talk about like their love languages. And I'm like, I think you'll have this backwards. Like you're looking at it from the wrong perspective. Again, I think that's a perspective thing. It's like, you really can't know what your love language is until you start noticing yourself and you start noticing what and how you give, and then recognizing that like that's actually what you need. That's actually your love language. That's what you desire.
Well, that makes all the sense here with how this book reflects a desire to be witnessed and seen. And this
Yeah.
is your greatest skill in what you give to your loved ones.
Yeah, I'm totally here to be seen. Like,
Yeah.
and I show up in our community spaces like to be seen. And it feels so good because I spent my childhood and my young adult life as a trained performer, being watched, always feeling like I was being watched everywhere I went, whether it was walking down the street or working at a job or performing on a stage. And so, yeah, everything was a performance to me. And so because of that, I'm a good trainer because I understand the ins and outs of performance and efficiency and injury mitigation and all that stuff. But that whole thing of like sovereignty and coming back into connection, it's like actually being able to be truly seen and truly noticed and be like, this is okay. This is okay for you to see me. And it's okay for you to see me and not like me and not give me the part and not want to do any of those things, but it doesn't actually, the healing for me was like, that doesn't matter. It was putting my own opinion above others, and to sort of reframe this thinking of like that being self-centered, the reframing of self-centered to being a centered self, and that's that like balance and harmony thing where it's like, yes, it's good to care for others, But on the flip side of that, there has to be some balance too. There are contexts and situations and scenarios where like putting yourself first is actually the better thing to do, you know? And in my opinion, it's actually more of like a yes and they're usually always existing at the same time. That's part of the paradox that like, yeah, my opinion matters more than your opinion does. And your opinion also, you know, has
It's
weight,
significant. Yeah.
is significant, you know, in this moment. So I think, yeah, being able to learning how to do that dance and then finding out how that like comes out through my personality it's been cool to watch and notice myself, but it's really, really cool and special when other people notice it and see it and appreciate it, because to me, that's medicine. Five of Hearts is medicine.
Mm.
And so like, yeah, I show up to get that good. So it's so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
So
so
God.
God, you know? Five of Hearts to me. I don't know if somebody said this to me, but it just that feels so strong in my mind right now. I'm like, oh, this is medicine. This is what this is.
Did you hear that? We both said that at the same time. So God.
Oh, we did.
We did.
Of course we did.
So curious. If there is one thing that you could be remembered for, what would you like that to be?
It's a really awesome question. It's almost like I can see it
Mm.
and I know like its essence, but I'm not sure if it has words yet. It's like,
You can think on it.
I guess, you know, people talk a lot about like impact and making impact. And I think for me, the word maybe really has more to do with influence. And it is kind of energetic. And I think it does have to do with words and the way that like what I say influences things, you know.
Yeah, you're very skilled in your guiding experiences of just being in the moment and saying what needs to be said, like as it's said, for the people that are there in the moment. I feel like I feel like you
Thank
can
you.
gauge, like versus me, I'm a little bit more scripted, where I have I the meditation that I do, it's pretty similar each time versus, and that's okay because like I figured out what works for me and how, my experience looks, and I feel like um versus you can pull in your words through being very present instead of like having a plan all the time. Maybe you do sometimes, but like this is just what I'm seeing.
Yeah, you see it correctly. And I would describe this as being an improv artist. Like, this is the part of me that's like, I am a creator.
Yeah.
And I create best from a clean slate, which absolutely has to do with presence. So, like in my somatic coaching, something that's really central to every one of the practices that I offer and tools that I offer and services that I offer, like it's all central to presence. Presence is like the central key really in all of that. It's really just learning how to be present. And I think when I'm truly present, that's also when I'm the most creative because I'm the most connected to the moment. And the truth is that in the moment, there's so much information. There's so much information in every single moment. And like, so when I'm performing, you know, or I'm doing something like that, that's one of those really juicy moments where I like have full permission to just be like so fucking present and just like play off of whatever's like happening in my mind, you
Mhm.
know, or like whatever's happening in the room. Like that's
Yeah.
also kind of like how I play. So yeah, improv, like I'm better when I have something to like respond to in the moment. That's always when the best stuff comes through. And I'm usually very open channel in those moments too. Like I won't be able to really remember what I said.
Yeah. That makes all
Or
the
like when I'm
sense because
writing,
it's
I won't,
not being, yeah, it's not going
it's
in the
not
long
coming through
term.
a conscious channel to,
Yeah.
not completely. Like
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, usually there isn't like a strong conscious memory of it either.
Yeah.
Which
And
is
you've
all which
got,
also makes like the secret notebook writing really fun and weird and cool to like go back and read things and just be like, oh my God, I wrote this.
yeah, well, having that 5 line in there, the 3 5, you've got that visionary. No, you're not, you're six
Three,
three,
six,
six
three, I
three.
think.
Yeah,
Something
six
like that.
three. Excuse me. Ah, pardon me. I, who was it I was just talking to or thinking of that was a 3 5? Anyway, um, I would love to hear this is a great question. I feel like what's an insult that you have received that you're really proud of?
An insult that I have received that I'm really proud of. This is gonna sound crazy, um, but like getting fired.
Yeah.
Once when I moved to New York and I was like in my early 20s, I got like unjustly fired by this horrible person and it like ruined my mind. Um, and then the last couple of years also that happened. And it's like, I don't know. I just, at this point, I'm kind of just like, yeah, like absolutely not. To me, that's just like, oh, if we're having this kind of tension, it means like it's actually more of a reflection of like my own power and my own influence in the space. And somebody else not being okay with like my power or my influence. And also my influence in the sense that like I will advocate. I will advocate for myself. I will advocate for other people. I will teach other people and be very like open and loud about like, don't let other people treat you badly, you know? Like when people ask you to do things that are like unreasonable,
Yeah.
you don't have to do them. You don't have to do anything that like an employer tells you to do. You don't. And I think we forget that like there's a certain level of like will
Mm-hmm.
that we've like just and willpower that we've
Mm-hmm.
sort of like disconnected from.
We've
Like,
learned to, absolutely.
and so yeah, in my mind, it's just like a huge compliment because it that's actually wait, I forget what the question was, but
Yeah,
that
it's an
to me
insult that
that's like,
you're proud of.
oh yeah, so I take it
Yeah,
as a huge compliment because it just means
totally.
that I can't be controlled.
Absolutely. You
I
know,
can't
you
be
are
controlled.
unemployable. Like you are like, yes, exactly.
Um,
I love that. It's so true. Like you are so powerful that people aren't going to just be simply on your shoulders unless you choose for them to be there. Like, you know what I mean? Like people can't step on you. It's just not.
yeah, and usually someone can feel that way, that's one thing, but for somebody to be like, I need to remove them from the space, it means they feel like socially they feel threatened.
Mhm.
I'm like a social threat, which means I do hold some influence,
Mhm.
you know? And I
Absolutely.
think, but I think that taking that action is actually like more reflective of them as a person in
Yeah.
that way. And
Or
so
the
I think,
organism that you were in, like
yeah,
has more to do with that.
that exactly. And I feel like, um, so there's like a potential mind fuck that comes with that. But I just say no to it.
Yeah. You're like 7 options. Oh,
Yeah, and I'm especially irreverent. Like I do have a little bit of like strong counter will in me that's like just also partially some neurospicy stuff, but part of me is like, yeah, but I also have like conscious reasoning behind pretty much everything I do. And that
yeah.
is the analytical part of me. And I would call it analytical rather than intellectual.
Yeah. It's
Like
beautiful.
that part of me is always on.
Yeah. If you could go back to your 18-year-old self and give them some advice, what would you say to Kimberly?
For some reason, the first thing that came to my mind. So this is like an example of just like channeling what's happening in the moment. The first thing that snapped into my mind was different than what would have come out if I had sat and consciously thought about it and like constructed something.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go with what came to my mind. For some reason, what came to my mind was like, girl, have some sex, girl.
For sure.
Like, it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's okay if you have sex. That's what I would
Yeah.
tell her. I would be
That's
like,
amazing.
it's completely okay.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. That that's that zhuzh. that that joie de vivre, like be creative, have fun, enjoy the moment, feel that passion, that's so that got taken out of a lot of people's essence when
Yeah.
that creativity, that beautiful opportunity of being one with everyone and everything, is ah, such a
Yes,
portal.
totally. And I think if like we just opened up a portal for me to like speak to her,
Yeah.
I would just tell her that like that same verve, that same love that you have for and excitement that you have for life, that delicate, precious appreciation and like the way that you cherish life, like this can be a part of celebrating life.
Mhm.
This is a part of that. This is a part of the poetry of life. It's a part of that celebration. It's completely integrated. It's a part of that. And it's an important part of that. And I think if I had heard that, I would have been able to like feel more free exploring. I would have been able to feel like I had a little more like there would have been more of a little more inspiration.
Mhm.
Like I don't think I was really even inspired by
Mhm.
it. But I would tell myself like this can be an amazing source of inspiration if you let it,
Mhm.
because it really does have everything to do with you and it will create, some kind of root system or anchor for you around having your own sense of self
Mhm. Mhm.
as well, because then it's like I moved into my like young adulthood and like my sense of self just became completely wounded.
Mhm.
And I think that if sex was something that had been anchored as like a place to come home to
Yeah.
for me
Yeah.
in my relationship to life and to my own life, like that would really have like saved me in a lot of ways. I think it would have been a game changer in my mental health.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Thank you for
yeah.
sharing. Thank you so much because who knows who could be able to tap into this wisdom and receive. So thank you so much.
Hmm. Yeah. I hope somebody hears that and feels inspired
Yeah.
by it.
Yeah, I
Wherever
really
you're
do.
at in your journey with that.
yeah, with life, with creativity, with our sensuality or sexuality or wherever it is. Like, I really feel that, unless it is a truly ingrained piece of who you are, you've never ever felt any sort of sexual drive or push. I completely understand that there are asexual people out there, so I don't want to negate that people that feel that way.
Mhm.
But what I do want to say is that if our libido is down, that, to me, that is an indication of a problem and a challenge that we get to meet, because we are all sexual beings. That's how we came into this life.
Right.
And
Well, and
so, yeah.
sorry, I
No, you're
also do
fine.
that sometimes. I interrupt people.
You are good.
Um, um, well, yeah, I love that you said that. And even I was inspired by you saying that it could be like a creative outlet too. Because even the way that I sort of described it just now, I wasn't really even thinking about it in terms of like art. And my mediums are all movement. I was a choreographer. And so even just to think of it as like, oh my gosh, like this is also a medium for like creating some really cool things. I think that would have gotten like the bells and whistles going in my brain
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
which like would have woken me up, in a way.
Mhm.
And I think, and given me more of a lifeline to my own pleasure and to my own sensation, which would have created a stronger foundation for me moving into womanhood
For sure.
and um in my nervous system. And like for me, yeah, because I'm realizing like, oh yeah, the whole performance thing, I grew up in this like energy of performance. And that's how sex was for me.
Mhm.
It was like something to be good at. It was
Well,
always a performance rather than a celebration of life or a medium, an outlet for inspiration, or for spiritual inspiration or a medium for creativity.
yeah, yeah. I feel like you are not alone in the putting together sex and performance, in the sense of the prevalence of um, pornography, just being there in the system. And so we think we're, unconsciously, people think, well, I have to match, or I have to be similar, or this is what sex looks like. And so this is
Yeah,
what, I need to match that expectation,
right.
make the performance. And so, yeah, like, ah, beautiful, beautiful realizations and things to look at and see. I'm I'm curious what you think. Um, what is our world gonna look like in 5 years? What are we gonna?
In 5 years?
Yeah.
That's a really cool question. What a cool invitation. Um, and especially to do it in this space because it does, like being here to do like this interview, it does put me in that space of like the open channel zone because
Yeah.
yeah, like I am performing, but that really just means I get to be like so present.
Mhm.
Um, and maybe even more present than I would be able to access for myself if I were alone in terms of like envisioning.
Mhm.
So maybe that's part of my vision is like that
Mhm.
more of us, and by more of us, I mean like cultural paradigm shift, more of us will be able to have access in our bodies and in our nervous systems to our dreams, to the
Mhm.
living dream, so that we can actually build and create it, you know?
Mhm.
Um, I just know trauma so well. And I know how it can sort of like your cut you off from your senses. And so I think to be able to like return to our senses will also like help us to like engage in our spiritual gifts. And I think so many of us like we were all meant to to have that spiritual gift of like being able to envision and to have a dream and to become the living dream, you know? Um, and to me, that has like, that's again, that whole thing of like sovereignty, like everyone kind of having a stronger felt, true felt sense of real power and real autonomy. So in my mind, it's like, I think of like the uprising of the peoples, you know? That's my hope. That's my dream, you know, that in 5 years there will have been a massive shift to this current paradigm that is empire and oppression, um, because the peoples have like hunkered down in their communities and like received spiritual support and positive influence in that way, that like they've come home to their senses, they've come home to their bodies, they've healed their relationship to self and soul, you know, those self wounds and those soul breaks, like that's all a part of nervous system healing, and it really does give you access to like your dreams. And what really breaks my heart is like women, brilliant women, who like just don't have access to like that sense of autonomy or that sense of power, or really even can't access like anything
Yeah,
other than
any creative
stress or
drive.
overwhelm.
Yeah.
Yeah, when asked, like, well, what do you want? What do you
Yeah.
desire?
Yeah.
Let alone being able to like create a dream or a vision for
Yeah.
yourself. Like,
Or your community, you know, like your family, like, yeah,
yeah, like
any
to me
grander
is about,
thing.
yes, to me is about stepping into your creatorship, you know, and to recognize that you are the creator, to be anointed by that God consciousness that says like power doesn't live outside of me. And like I do have the will to create things, but you need access. Your body is also a key. You know, your body is the gate
100%.
and the key. And so again, that's holding that paradox. So that is like my vision and my dream, is to see like empowered healing for humanity and supported transformation for us spiritually on the
100%.
planet.
100%.
New paradigms, right? And that's
Yeah.
part of why I love Healy and why Healy was like, is and continues to be like a massive yes for me, even in my moments of like really feeling not sure about it. Like, what really has consistently brought me back home to like, no, I'm following this path, is
Seriously.
like I get to be not only a part of like an important paradigm shift, but I get to lead. I get to be a
Yeah.
leader in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And feels good. It feels
It
good to lead
feels so
because
good.
it feels like adventure. It feels like I get, you know, this
Yes.
whole thing of like going first to me is just like having some freedom to step into anything you want to step into. That's that it
Anything.
like leadership is actually about freedom,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and like
Mm-hmm.
seizing that and like living in that energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's so
Mm-hmm.
good.
Yeah. It's so easy to just stay in our comfortable little cage, our little bird cage that we could just like, if we really want to, we can just fly on right out, you know,
Yeah,
but I feel like that bird cage is very much like when we give our presence away because of just how you said earlier, and that there is so much in this moment. There's so much here to see and look and do. And we have access to literally everything, which can be like a little overstimulating. It's like,
absolutely.
and so it's a skill to be able to say, oh, I'm looking at this right now, and now I'm looking at this right now, and then I can see this, you know, and having the knowing that we have the choice instead of just allowing the bird feeder to give us our food and tell us what we can get when we can
Yes,
get it. We can actually literally just fly out of this cage because the bars are open. It's literally just us staying inside. And so I love how you went to Healy, because that is exactly what I was going to go to next, because this device has replugged me back into my body to really realize that I have access to choose to what I want to pay attention to. And really what I want to pay attention to is me. So
And
much so when we're
that's,
on our phone, we're distracting ourselves from ourselves.
yes, that is a divine frequency of focus. Focus is the skill mastery of presence. Focus, that's focus. I love it. I love
Yeah.
focus. Like you said, being able to choose that sense of spiritual sovereignty. Like, where are you putting your presence? People always say, like, God, it really drives me crazy when people say, you know, your time is your most valuable resource. Time is a construct.
Yeah.
Like, uh, yes, and
Yes. And
I would also totally disagree. And
yeah.
I would say that, like, your most valuable resource, your most precious resource is your presence,
Mm-hmm.
where you place your
Yeah.
focus and your energy,
Yeah.
because that's your laser beam.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
where you point, like what you were saying, where you point your laser beam
Mm-hmm.
makes a difference between this scenario of being the caged bird
Mm-hmm.
or like flying out of it,
Yeah. Just look
flying.
up. Just look up. It's open.
Yeah.
It's open. Just fly up and out.
Yeah. I had to pull this card out because it immediately came to my mind. And so I was like, okay, you were literally saying there's so much information every moment. And I was like, well, this is the information in the moment. And so I am doing a focus thing where I'm listening to you. I'm staying present with that. And I'm walking. I have
Mm-hmm.
a picture in my mind. I'm going to find it. I'm going to stay a part of this conversation. That is the skill mastery of focus. And
Yeah.
that's what we're being asked to do. So the fact that you also just named overwhelm.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, here's the thing too, is that I feel like we want to name time as a precious resource because we don't actually realize that time is infinite and we're
Right.
going to get more time. And that
Yeah.
can produce overwhelm. So we want to put it in a
Flood the
box.
system. Totally. Yeah.
Time
And
is priceless because it's invaluable because it's just it infinite. It's infinite.
I love how invaluable the word invaluable means is like there's like a paradoxical
Yes.
essence to it because when you say something is invaluable, it's actually like that's why you would price it so high.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually the most, it then becomes the most valuable, which I think is so awesome. What a mind twist.
I would love to know, let's say you and I are in the Akashic records and we go to pick up the book of you.
Oh my
What's the
gosh.
title? What is the title of your book?
Whoa, this is a crazy question. So I have some thoughts, and I would like to pull and tug at those threads of information in the moment.
Yeah.
I think some maybe you can help me formulate this,
Yeah.
but I think, which you're always really like generous about with me. Um, so yeah, my brain has this bone. That card, I was like, I wonder what the tarot, like what tarot card that is, because I'd also love to know like what playing card does that translate to? Because I'm sure there's something in there that we need to know about. So this is the Eight of Swords. Do you know what the Eight of Swords?
Eight of Swords would be, I believe, Eight of Clubs or Eight of Spades. Oh, I had this.
Oh, one of the two.
That's one of the two.
So yeah, okay. In all honesty, the first thing that flew through my mind when you were like, what would the title be? It was like Eight of
It's
Swords.
Spades. Eight of Spades.
Yeah, it was Eight of Swords. And then also I'm like, oh, well, I think my like signature soul frequency is presence, you know, so something that has to do with like I am presence. Yeah, what's the Eight of Swords about?
Eight of Swords. I'll look up the tarot. It's not coming to me right now. Here it is.
You said it would be the Eight of Spades?
Yeah, Eight of Spades.
Or yeah, what's Eight
Look
of
at
Spades
this.
about? Yeah, that's intense.
Yeah. But then the Eight of Spades is about having infinite and an abundance of health, work, life related, lifestyle related stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, this like expansion of life.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. What was the question again? The question is
The title of the Book of Kimberly in the Akashic Records. I love how she looks up. She's like, the answer's up there. I know it. It's up there. For sure. We can come back to it.
I think it would be called something about liberation. Like that's the title.
I like that a lot.
Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, something about liberation is maybe what it would be called. That's
Yeah.
a wild question, dude.
Questions are more valuable than answers, in my opinion, because the answers always change. The questions
Yeah.
stay the same.
Yeah, I feel like it would have that might be a good title. I don't know why, but I think that would be a good title because I'm putting all those pieces together. And lately I've also been talking a lot about deliberation, being deliberate. Deliberation would be like that skill mastery, discipline, you know, deliberation. But when you do something deliberately, there's purpose in it. And there is no purpose without you being present for it. Like it is generated by your presence. So I think there's something about that process, like in the context of like, how do we find liberation? We do it deliberately, which somehow is that paradox. And I think it does speak to like harmony and balance that move us into nature. You know, we were talking about this earlier. If you have harmony, if you have balance, right? Balance is actually like, I don't think of it as a noun. I think of balance as like a verb, a verb. You know,
Yeah.
or like frequency.
It's
So
something to
yeah, in
strive
my mind,
for. It's in the future. It's like movement towards that. But it's also, like you were saying, the balance of the moment of this way or this way. It's an
right.
active.
I even like that you did this and then this because it's like that cross patch
Mm,
of a paradox.
mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think that play on being deliberate and finding purpose through liberation, maybe, something to that
Absolutely.
effect. Like
Absolutely.
that's where we're going, and that kind of does speak to like my dream of where I want us to go. So I think that's like a built-in part of like my story. And
All
what's
I can
really cool,
see, all I can see is you stepping out of the cave with a torch and you being
that's
like, "Come
awesome.
on, guys." Like that's
I would totally do that. And you know what's crazy when I think about like Keely and like building out a team, 'cause that's what we do. And I'm like a community nerd. So like I love that stuff. In my mind, like, and this is something I've also known from a very young, like I was too young to even be having thoughts like this. And I remember thinking, isn't this weird? So random. A true leader is someone who knows when not to lead.
Mm.
And so I also love this, like, well, you doing the torch thing, it makes me think of this vision I have had with my Healy team of like holding the door open to let everybody go through and being like, go, go, go,
Holding the
get through the
door
door,
open.
holding the door open. We're gonna hold it open,
Yeah, that's
you know,
definitely,
and then you
definitely.
shut the door behind. Like if we're
Mm-hmm.
moving into the new paradigm, that
Mm-hmm.
sort of collapse of the binary into like a place of harmony, harmonious existence. Like, yeah, it does have something to do with like, I don't know, the torch though added something to the story where it was like, oh, it's a little more epic than this. Like, we're moving at night.
Yeah,
We're
for
moving at
sure.
night, which means like
Kali Yuga.
there's some wild stuff going on. Like we're like moving through the night
Yeah, there's a reason people would need to
shadows.
move if they're moving at night.
Yeah.
Like
So I
that's
got my
with
torch
purpose.
and I'm holding the bush
Mm-hmm.
back
Yeah,
or the door or whatever. And I'm like, go,
yeah.
go, go, go,
Go, go,
go.
go. It's safer out over there than it is back
Yeah.
here. For
Like
sure.
get your bonuses, make your money, like
Yeah.
expand your lifestyle, liberate yourself, step into freedom, like, but do it deliberately, do it deliberately, do it
Mm-hmm.
on purpose.
Yeah. What's the most important lesson that you've learned in your career as an entrepreneur?
To be kind to myself,
Mm.
to be kind to myself and that I can trust myself. No, that I can trust my intuition.
Ooh, even
And
better.
that intuition is an instinct. It's
Mm-hmm.
more of an act. To intuit things is actually to just like, again, create connection, put those two pieces together, those two
Being
experiences.
available for the message too. You have to be available.
Yeah. And what that looks like a lot of times feels involuntary because you
Mm.
showed up to be like, I want to like do this thing. I have this aspiration. I want to do this thing. I want to complete this project. You have this aspiration and then you dive into it because you're on the dharmic path and you're like, you start spinning your wheels and something about it doesn't work out or your energy shorts out or like something else happens. But
Mm-hmm.
then something else comes along and you're like, oh, this was like just part of it. And I had to go over here first so that I could put these two things together. And you start to see how like building a body of work or building a business is a culmination. And so in those moments that feel like things are fizzling or they feel like, yeah, whatever, it's like just,
Separate, like the pieces, they're like, I see them, but they're like,
yeah, disjointed.
ah.
It's just like being nice to yourself.
For
Like,
sure.
just being really nice to yourself, knowing that you are moving intuitively and that that's how you do, which means like you kind of show up not always knowing exactly like what you're
Yeah,
figuring
you don't
out
know the
what the assignment
how.
is as you're doing it, honestly. And then
Absolutely.
you're like, oh my God, all of this was in down, like these instructions were all downloaded in me. And
Yeah.
so that's why, to me, that looks like showing up that learning to just be nice to myself, that looks like showing up and being like, I'm gonna get this shit done today. And then something else comes up and I'm like, oh, just kidding. I guess this is what I'm doing today.
Yeah.
I guess this is what I'm doing today. But look what I did. And I'm like, well, that's cool that this is an important thing right now. Like there is a divine timeline happening. Like,
Yeah.
and yes, I still have my own instincts to do certain things at certain times, but I also trust my intuition when certain things come in because I recognize that there's like a bigger sequence. And I think I used to be really hard on myself about not hitting my marks and stuff. Um, would really struggle to complete projects, things like
Yeah.
that. And I would just I'd be so hard on myself about it instead of just being like, it doesn't actually have anything to do with you or failing or succeeding or any of that stuff. Like,
Yeah.
just be nice to
Like
yourself.
like there's could be a bigger picture. There could be something greater
There's
coming in. There's
always a bigger picture,
yeah, yeah,
always.
yeah.
So yeah, just being nice to myself
It's
and
beautiful.
gentle. Like,
Yeah, we are taught that being entrepreneurs means being cutthroat, right? Like, which also means, and like, it's hard work and you got to work, constantly and all this stuff. Well, I mean, I think we know by now that that's a scarcity programming. That's old paradigm stuff that just doesn't apply. Maybe
totally.
that got us through the Piscean age, right? But in this Aquarian age that we are in, it is about community and being the water bearers to ourselves and our community, like as a whole, and knowing that we will also be fed, we will be hydrated by our community as well.
Well, I could really talk about that all day long. You named some really beautiful stuff, and just you bringing the water bear into it, like there's a very soft spot in my heart for this conversation because my like inner Aquarius moon is like I've come to like realize that I don't know, I just got this download that for me, when it comes to like creating my meaning making system, Aquarius energy is actually like to me cloud energy.
Oh yeah.
The water bearer, but it's an air sign, but it's the water bearer. So I'm like, so again, it's making those connections. I'm like, oh, cloud. And then I think of like
Mm.
thunder perfect mind. And I think of like,
Mm.
that being like a low key part of this like Magdalene epic that's like being
Mm-hmm.
unearthed. And like, there's just something so beautiful about that slow lightning, lightning that comes, the thunder and the lightning is that like strike of
Mm.
divine intelligence. It is the gold frequency. It is being anointed by the God consciousness. Like,
Yeah.
I
Some
love all that
cultures,
so
you can
so
only
much.
be, you can only become the shaman if you've been struck by lightning.
Yeah, okay, that too. Like being struck by lightning is actually like quite violent.
Yeah.
But it also relates to the nervous system. It's a metaphor for the nervous system. So, and the thunderclouds really being the storm in the mind storm, like that is the
Mm.
place
Mm.
that is the place. And I always think of like the clubs, of being
Mm.
like, yeah, mind, like
Mm-hmm.
clubs being this like
Yeah.
mind oriented space. And
Yeah.
so anyway, just to like that was like a weird, just drippy offshoot, which is part of my personality. But I like that you named this like thing of moving out of the old paradigm specifically for entrepreneurs. Because I feel like the new paradigm is soulful entrepreneurism. And what that looks like is something that in the collective that you and I have built, it's for soulpreneurs. It's called the SUBROSA Collective. Like some of our community values are like really well knitted into how we approach that, how we approach moving into the new paradigm of soulful entrepreneurship, which to me very much has to do with self-love, that kindness to yourself, self-love. The second anchor there being community care. How do we anchor into self-love? We really only do it through regulation. We do that in community. It is that thing of like being seen, to be held and holding,
Yes. Both.
like that all goes together, and in that space, the next anchor really for me is like creative prowess. Like we were here to be like wild creators. So like, yeah, what comes from that? That's what actually, in terms of action, how do we action that and move that literally into the physical 3D? Like we get creative as hell.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
unapologetically, like it's empowered. It's very much this thing of like empowered healing,
Mm-hmm.
in order to like we are the ones that support transformation because we have the power. We
Yeah,
have
we've
realized our own power.
decided.
We've decided. It's that thing of deliberation. We're doing it deliberately.
Hmm.
So yeah, and then embodied leadership, that's also like built in there. For me, those are kind of like 4 pillars, and I'm sure everybody that will continue to like grow and expand as we grow and expand, but like
Yeah.
that feels very like special and close to my 5 hearts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talking about transformation, like that's how we get there. It's
Yeah.
all about love.
Yeah. And what's funny is you said it's all about love, and I literally heard in my this is so funny. Yeah, I heard in my brain it's all about wealth.
Totally.
And like I feel like that
It is.
has been like the whole story of wealth. Like we are creating and we've created an avenue for us to all rewrite our own story of wealth. We've all been sold that like, what are you going to be when you grow up, Sally? I'm going to be a doctor, and like
Great, great.
get sold on this conveyor belt. But we are here, Kimberly and I are here to be like, there are other, maybe more fun ways for us to be wealthy, and we are going to be we are wealthy, because we can hold the wealth, we can do something with the power of it.
Yes,
We're signing up for it.
I agree. I think that we are going to rewrite the story of wealth itself. And we're going to do that
Stepping out of the cave
through
with love.
heart-led
Yep.
transformation, right? The heart is these 2 pieces at the top, balance, moving into one point, harmony, like
Movement.
figuring out balance and harmony.
Mm-hmm.
As a collective, I really do think that like the result is reauthorizing wealth entirely. Like that is the paradigm. That's the vision we're creating. We talked about like having a vision for yourself as an individual. And what's really cool is to see, like, as a group, to see how each individual dream becomes just like the business or the project or the body of work. It becomes this culmination.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes this bigger picture. And I'm telling you intuitively, Andromeda and I already know, we already got the download. That is the big picture that you're stepping into. We've seen it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is that thing of like the holding energy, like in the heart. You can also view it moving into one point, but there's also like, you know, it's a vessel too.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is about holding. you know? So it feels good. It feels good to be like, yeah, this is what I'm holding.
Mm-hmm.
I'm holding this energy.
So for somebody who wants to step into this type of soulful entrepreneur, building creative thing, what do you feel like is a really important personality trait to have, or something um, to strengthen that will help them to succeed?
Self-recognition, recognizing in yourself, not necessarily what your strengths are, but what's the word I'm looking for? The first step I think has to do with creating ease. And to me, ease is acknowledgement. When you acknowledge yourself, and it does require you to be present, when you acknowledge for yourself that you're already doing the thing, what you did is enough. You're already doing the thing. Self-acknowledgement is ease. It lets us just like, oh, step back. Because what we really need to move into that space, we need to heal our nervous systems. We need devices like frequency that can help us with our nervous system regulation, but we also, you know, there is also some coaching to be done around that. And that would be like my coaching point of like, how do you like approach this?
We've
Where do you
always been told
begin?
what to do, that now being like, so like being
Give your
reorienting.
give yourself some rest through ease. Find some self-acknowledgement
Yeah.
first. Then once you're familiar with like acknowledging yourself, then you can actually start to like notice yourself. That's like the step before noticing.
Mm,
Even noticing things about yourself because you've removed the distortion.
hmm.
You can notice things about yourself through a lens of distortion pretty
Absolutely.
easily. So to me, that's the baby steps is like
Mm,
acknowledgement through ease. And it usually starts, it begins through the revolution of rest, sleep, do less, active recovery, come home to your body so you can be present in the moment and acknowledge yourself
mm.
with
Wow.
with grace and with
Yeah.
ease. You know, that ease,
Yeah.
it really does signal grace, divine grace to come in.
What it is also is nature. Nature is so easy. It always takes the easiest route, like a waterfall,
Oh, I love
water.
that. Well, and you're talking about like moving into this Aquarius energy, you know,
Hmm.
that water, the water bearer, like to be able to like, I don't know,
Yeah.
use water as like a companion, maybe like allowing water to become your companion and teaching you things about ease
Mm.
and about being. Like that's a beautiful place to start. Absolutely. And that might mean like tears and crying or like maybe some sweating
Yeah.
or even like, you know, uh yeah,
Cleansing.
because that's a part of like rest and active recovery too.
For sure. For sure. It's okay for us to put down what we picked up in the past.
Totally.
Absolutely. I would love to hear about um, a recent win you've experienced, something you are celebrating, and any things that you are like working on that you would like to share with us so that we can get excited with you.
Um, okay, a recent win. Is it wild to say there are so many wins that I don't know where to begin?
That's beautiful. Um, and and so
I know that
true.
Yeah, I
because
know that sounds pretty self-righteous, but like maybe that's honestly the win is being like, yeah, call me self-righteous. Like
shit's
that's the
good.
win. It's yeah, that's my biggest win is to be able to like step into what I consider to be like my next chapter professionally with like
Hmm.
confidence, confidence in me. Um, that feels good. It
For
feels God.
sure.
And yeah, I'm building a lot right now, but namely, yeah, really like focusing my energies on um, the SUBROSA mentorship collective, and then also some somatic coaching as well. I've got a group program that I'm going to be rolling out this next month. It's called Hearts on Fire, and that's going to be really fun. That's going to be like also have some like connection and like exclusive Healy SUBROSA uh, aspects to it. And then yeah, some one-to-one coaching and yeah. But like I said, kind of yeah, going live, if you will, launching those things. And this next month, we're in April now, so if you're watching or listening to this replay style, it's 2024 and it's
By the
May.
way, by B
It's
Dubs.
April, but in May, after May, check me out. There's going to be some really awesome one-to-one coaching offers. Um, a program that I've named Metamorphosis that's like very dear to my heart. And then some business mentorship up in the SUBROSA Mentorship Collective. Um, and just yeah, really we're gonna really dive into like our online community there. That's like such a fun, geeky space for
Mm,
me. Like I love it so much. And then yeah, the
well,
some of the group coaching. So that will be more like maybe less movement oriented and more about like hands-on self-healing
mm,
practices, but also working with learning to work with frequency, and then also learning to work with frequency device, whether it be distance through me as a client or in the collective with all of us who have them and use them. Um, Sort of in tandem with our somatic practices.
we didn't get a chance to talk about this. I would love to know, now that we've had most of this conversation, what program have you been running on the Healy during our talk today?
Contentment.
Contentment. Ooh, I
Yeah,
love
I
that.
think because there's like this fire in me, you know. Um, so I guess sometimes I operate on two different astrological maps,
Yeah.
two different dimension. To me, those are different dimensions. Like it's not even like a different timeline. It's just like, oh, Western astrology is like a different dimension than like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Eastern. Um, but it's cool to be like, yeah, they both exist. Like they're
Yeah.
both here, they're both real. But in my Western chart, my sun is Sagittarius. So like
Mm-hmm.
that part of me, and I have lots of Sagittarius in my chart as well, my sidereal chart, Eastern chart.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is like a strong horse energy about me. And like, yeah,
The
my like life
hunter.
path gene key or whatever is strength, strength is strength. And so yeah, there is this, you know, and I was a dancer, like there is this thing about like thighs and legs and running and really just getting off on forward movement. And I think gratitude practices have never been for me. Um, because I live in the joy and of life. Like that is
Mm-hmm.
gratitude. Like that's already just like an inherent part of me.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't, that practice doesn't necessarily serve me in my, with me, what I've got going on in my mental bag. Um, but my version of that maybe is like, yeah, And again, it's like that practicing that contentment is like acknowledgement, acknowledgement,
Mhm.
finding ease,
Well, it's
finding
so
ease.
present. Like you can't be content without being like here now.
Yes, you can't cherish the moment if you can't find some contentment, which, contentment to me, like I always think of things in terms of movement. That's the dancer in me. And so when I think of contentment, like there is a stillness energy about
Mm-hmm.
contentment
Yeah.
where it's like, okay, we're gonna do a sacred pause here.
Yeah.
And like, I'm like, I don't want to pause.
I'm a 5. I'm moving, I'm going, I'm traveling.
But then I can't always fully appreciate what's happening. And like that appreciation of things is hella generous. Like it's really generative.
Mhm.
So like allowing myself to steep in that energy felt important for me today
Yeah.
because I have been, yeah,
Busy,
going,
excited,
going. Talk about hyper
ready.
focus. My word,
You're doing stuff.
doing some
I
stuff.
the people that sign on to work with you and sign on to be builders with you are so fortunate. I I'm excited for them.
That's
Cuz yeah, they're going to have so much fun. I can already hear the excitement in the conversations, of like the things that we're going to be sharing, because as like leaders, we support each other, right? But like I just had this moment of being like, oh my gosh, that you're not sharing details or anything with me, but so and so is like da 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 da. And I'm like, yeah. Like they are, the amount of wealth they will be receiving by like purchasing a device for themselves, but then what they get with it by purchasing through you, I just, I mean, I want to be your team member. So,
you are
so
my
I
team
am,
member.
here I
That's
am.
well, and that's really like a key factor there is, that we all have separate teams, but we are a small collective of teams that have come together. And yeah, like the energy really is generosity. But what's cool about the energy of generosity is that it generates more things
Mhm.
on top of like having, a compensation plan that is eh, like generous to the extreme. Talk about like sustainability.
Wow.
So yeah, I have a lot of like energy and excitement around supporting future team members. Absolutely. And it's just such a massive, major compliment coming from you because, I see the way that you lead, and that you work with your people. And for you to be proud of me feels like it means a lot to me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um,
It feels equal, like that when the partnership, the things that I put in and the things that you
mhm.
put in, like we just like
Yeah, it feels good.
volley back and forth
It
really
feels so good.
well, that like it feels amazing to be able to welcome in people to be like, hey, get some of this. It's
Yes.
good. I'm
Well,
here.
and oh, this was literally already sitting here through this whole call. I pulled this before the call. It's your card.
Oh yeah.
You're the
Oh my
king of clubs,
gosh. We pulled all the kings.
dude. Yeah. So this, I like looked over and it's just like there, but it's like part of today's spread. I'm like, oh, of course. Um, because I was like thinking about how you're king of clubs just now, and then I look over and it's like right in front of my
Well,
face.
and side note, I don't think people know that you pulled the king of hearts and the king of spades before this call.
Oh, yeah, I
And then
did.
I pulled the king of, or you pulled the king
Spades.
of hearts and the king of diamonds.
Yes, I did. The two red.
The two reds. And then I pulled the spades and then you pulled the clubs.
Yeah, so this energy of today has a lot of king shit going on. Instead of kingship, I like king shit. Anyway,
Yeah,
I'm not sure if we're allowed to on the
you're
podcast,
fine.
but sorry.
You're fine.
Um, I think, wait, I was gonna say it, so I forgot. That's what comes with being really present. Your qualities, I was gonna say of, oh, I think we flow really well with each other because your king of clubs quality like is totally what I as a professional partner like really kind of need.
Hmm.
That works very well for me, which to me, like the king, right? Obviously, the king is hierarchical. It is.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but what's cool about that is that you kind of build, on these layers of trust
Hmm.
within this suit. So to me, like the very top of that suit is like, it's not just, um, I affirm your trust in yourself. It's I trust you. I extend trust. Trust that like generates even more of it in me.
Hmm.
It's like yeah,
Yeah.
that came to my mind like over and over and over. You're always just like, I trust you. You tend to seem to really like respect my time, but to me, I really translate that as like a form of trust,
Yeah.
not just in the process, but like actual trust in me. And you give me that affirmation, which like it's like this energy that kind of splashes me that I'm like, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
So it keeps me in that, it keeps me in a really good energy.
You return to self. You're like, oh yeah, it just like reminds you, like I'm trustable.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can do this. Definitely.
totally.
So, as a five of hearts, seven of clubs person, if you could give another person who has similar energy some advice or pearl of wisdom, is there anything that you could share with them?
Yes. Okay, this is
Yeah.
funny because my brain immediately was like, you're a queen.
Ooh,
Whoever's listening, baby, you're a queen. Don't you
yeah,
ever forget it.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
then I looked out just like before. I
Uh-huh.
looked over. Guess what was sitting on my altar? The
The
queen.
queen. Uh-huh.
Yeah, like you're a queen. I'm totally that friend that's like, don't let anyone with you. And if they do, I'll beat them up, you know?
Yeah.
Because everybody needs that one friend at the
Mm-hmm.
back of their mind that's
Mm-hmm.
like, that's like maybe extreme, that
Mm-hmm.
helps give them that little boost when they kind of need it.
Mm-hmm.
That's me. I'm totally willing to be that person. So this is the moment to just be like, yeah, if you kind of relate to me and my personality, but you want to experience like some of the wins and some of the like embodiment of me that you feel drawn to, in this interview,
Mm-hmm.
like that, that's how we got here. This is
Yeah.
how I got here, is to really channel what it means to embody the queen, which for me means like service. Queendom is service. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, it was really like embracing these parts of me that are like community oriented, that have like a, a genuine love for care and like, but with a level of ferocity where it's like, I also rule in this place of care.
Mm-hmm.
And what comes with that is that archetypal energy in the deck of like judgment, the judge.
Mm-hmm.
Judgment is not always a negative thing.
We need it.
And it is being able to confidently say like, yes, I give myself the green light on, passing judgment in this area that is my domain, that is my domain. I am the queen of care and service.
You are.
So whatever you're the queen of, like queendom is also like it signals something about dominion. Like
Mm-hmm.
what is your domain? what is your space? What is your space?
That's it right there. What's your space?
Yeah,
And that can
where,
look like whatever. It can be your body, it could be your house, it could be
yeah,
your vocation.
where you're like, this is like, I am the expert in this space, or I am the, I'm the boss in this space, or I'm the, whatever. It's that energy.
Mm-hmm. When I think of queens, I think of self-mastery. That's in MetaSymbology, it's more like mastery of self, versus
Hmm.
kings are mastery of their environment.
Oh, that's very cool.
So you can take that personal mastery, that holistic manager, and now like step out of the cave.
Yeah. Absolutely. Also, how you were talking about, we were talking about the torch and like holding the door or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like get out of the cave.
Yeah,
Go.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I love how you're pointing people to really honor themselves, especially with 5 energy, because interestingly, I've noticed a lot of people who have birth cards of 5s be diagnosed with ADHD or ADD.
Hmm.
When I
Interesting.
feel like it's actually just that's how their brain is set up. Change, you know what I mean? And you having that 5 of hearts, being an emotional adventurer, like of course it's about love. Of course it's about care, right?
Totally. I will say to me, the most, we can have all the talks about ADHD. We could say all the things about
Mm-hmm.
it, but to me, the most defining aspects of ADHD, being neurodivergent, being neurospicy, the most defining aspects have to do with the way that you learn
Mm-hmm.
and the way and what you're motivated by. My what the ways that I learn are different. They're unique. They're really unique to me, and they're just more different than most people. You know, they're a little bit different, and I'm not motivated by the same things that a lot of people are, and I'm not motivated by things that like our society wants us to be motivated by.
Yeah.
But both of those things can manifest as real challenges. Like statistically speaking, I'll like die earlier.
Mm-hmm.
There is a like impairment to brain function. There is an aspect of that that's very real. But there are also these superpowers that come with that and that come with that self-discovery and the self-knowing. So I love that analogy of the cave. Maybe I'm also like, get in the cave, and that's why we have the torch, like go inward.
Mm.
Self-love is ultimately like that's, yeah, a process of self-realization, self-discovery. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is what will help you get to your healing. And so much of like what we experience in our challenges, like around ADHD, you can also experience some pretty wild healing too,
Absolutely.
and be like, these challenges don't have to define me. The ways that I learn, what I'm motivated by, those can be defining factors in good ways too.
Absolutely.
That's the part of me that's like, oh, I'm really intuitive. I'm so creative. I'm
Mm-hmm.
really annoying. Like, yeah, like all these like really cool things about me
Yeah.
too. So that and those are qualities and skills, usually like the qualities and skill sets that when you begin to hone those things that come with that, most of the time those are roles that we have like um we don't have roles in society for anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Shaman, hunter, you know,
Yeah.
uh for example. Those are just
Yeah.
like two examples that pop up. So anyway, yeah, it is a really strong part of like my personality. It's not my personality, but it's like strongly expressed through my personality.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
absolutely. I think it's hmm, I just really love how you're just bringing people to their queendom, because we can all access the queen energy of whatever suit we have association with anytime we want to. You can be a queen of hearts anytime you act out of love, unconditional love. You become the queen of hearts. And any person can access that energy just by acting out of love, being the king or the queen of of their suit. And it's just a great example of it's a choice, whether we want to act out of love or fear or coercion or whatever it is, like we have the choice.
Yeah, that free will factor is really important because I think I thought about this earlier too when we were talking about authorizing your story in terms of like reality creation, creating new paradigms, like your destiny, like being able to intuit things is like, okay, yeah, there's a dharmic path, and then there's like this, I think you would call it like Kairos time, maybe, where it's more like the divine sequence in terms of
Mm,
time or timing, or like, yeah, knowing you need to do certain things at certain times, like that sense of timing, like a felt sense of time. Um, Trying to bridge these two thoughts. You still have to, it's like there's consent that's required. Like there is your destiny, but you still have to say yes to it. You still have
100%.
to be like, okay, yes, I'm willing to do that,
For sure.
you know? And if you don't make a point to like say yes, find your yes and like declare it,
Mm-hmm. And then act on it.
deliberate about it, right? That's commitment. Deliberate. Like that
Mm-hmm.
creates definition. There's containment there. The container is that commitment. Like without that, magically speaking, um, yeah, you're not going to be able to like access as much magic and miracles and stuff. In my experience, that's the truth.
So we're here for that. We're here for the deliberate magic.
Yeah, exactly.
I would love to know, is there any question that I haven't asked you that you would have liked to have been asked? And if so, what was
No, honestly, like these are awesome questions. Like crazy cool.
it? Yay. I'm so glad that we had this time and space for you to share your essence with us. Where can people find you online?
They can find me on Instagram at New Era Embodied. There's an underscore between each word.
New
Um,
underscore
they
era
can,
underscore embodied.
yes, and KimberlyGair.com, KimberlyGair.com.
Yeah. Get the good.
Yeah.
Yay. So
Thank you
thank
so
you
much for
guys.
having me.
Yeah.
This has been like amazing.
You're welcome. You're so welcome. There will probably be more of these kinds of conversations down the line. I have a feeling, I mean, you may see more of us around. So I thank you guys.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think so.
Oh, have a fantastic day. And we would love to talk with you guys more. Please be well.